Why do you think we're seeing so many of these street takeovers lately?
Not sure why we're seeing them many. I do know that social media is playing a really big part in being able to organize them so kind of effectively. Um, and we're actually seeing kids from not just our community participating, but other nearby communities actually coming to our municipality and joining in on these things.
Why do you think that they're choosing to, I guess, do these takeovers in your neck of the woods, per se?
I don't think it's just our town. I do think it's happening in the surrounding municipalities too. It's just we're kind of highlighting it because we had two happen in 1 week. So it was kind of an eye opener for us.
Uh, is there anything that you guys can do, whether it's pulling things from social media or I guess working resources on the ground to kind of prevent these teen takeovers from happening before they even start?
Yeah, so the second one that we experienced last week, last Friday, we did just that. We did monitor social media, and when we figured out what area it was supposed to start in, we just kind of put a lot of resources in that area, and that did seem to kind of dissuade it from really developing fully. We did still have some issues, but a lot less issues than we had with the one that had happened earlier in the week.
I feel like this is kind of more of a recent trend, like not just in your municipality, but what do you think it is about this generation where these teens just love kind of gathering and they're literally taking over areas?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the goal is. You know, thinking back when I was a kid, which is certainly a lot longer than I want to admit, um, I think, back then, if an officer stopped you, you certainly weren't looking to cause a problem. It does seem like these groups are kind of leveraging their anonymity and being in a large group to be able to do things they otherwise would probably not have done individually. And again, I think social media kind of plays into that. There's anonymity on social media. And, it's really kind of a scenario where, as you saw maybe on our social media post we put on Facebook this week, there's a lot of kids. Are we going to pursue kids like that? No, I mean, that's not safe, right? And some of these electric dirt bikes, which is what they are, they're motor vehicles, they'll go 50, 60 miles an hour. So it's just like chasing a regular motorcycle. It's really dangerous.
What are some of the possible, I guess, violations or consequences for young people who choose to engage in this, and not just them, but also their parents?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, our problem we've really determined there's actually three kind of buckets, if you will, of motor vehicles or vehicles that we're experiencing this problem with. The first one that we started out this summer dealing with were the e-scooters, and we passed our own ordinance, as a lot of municipalities did. And actually, right now, I'd say the e-scooter problem in Lombard's pretty minimal. But what we've seen from there is that there's a lot of these e-bikes on the road now, and state law says an e-bike has to be under 750 watts to be an e-bike. And, class three e-bikes, which means they can go up to 28 miles an hour, you actually have to be, a certain age to ride those. We're seeing a lot of kids who are riding class three e-bikes, and a lot of e-bikes now that are over 750 watts, which now makes them a motor vehicle, which means they need a driver's license. So also electric dirt bikes, quite frankly, or off-highway motorcycles. They don't have pedals at all, but they're 1,000 watts, 1,200 watts. They'll go 40 miles an hour. Now, if we stop those kids, they're driving without a valid driver's license. They have no insurance. They have no registration. And a 14 or 15-year-old getting all those tickets is not going to see a driver's license when they turn 16, probably. So there's kind of long-lasting effects for kids who are actually caught driving those, because it's just like they were driving a car but got caught by the police.
Ooh. What's your message for parents whose teens, because who teens are maybe potentially getting caught up in this?
Well, I think the first step is for parents, educate yourselves on what you're buying. Make sure you check the law, and it's great that kids are getting outside. But if you're going to buy your child an electric dirt bike, that's never going to be permitted. If you're buying them an e-bike, just make sure that you're following the law. And have a talk with your kids. Talk with them. Are you part of this thing that's going on with large groups joining up and taking over streets? I have kids myself, and I have ways of, taking a look at what they're doing, just kind of keeping track and touching base with them about, what they're involved in. And, just that daily check-in. Hey, what are you doing today, right? And especially if they've got one of these bikes, you know, right now you should be just kind of doing a little bit of an extra check-in, making sure they're just not getting caught up in this larger group type of thing.
And what are you hearing from other, I guess, community members that are concerned about this? Because this is one of those you could just be at a stoplight, and the next thing you know, you're surrounded by 50 kids.
Right. I mean, so we've been dealing for months with just a general concern over safety, with all of these vehicles, the e-scooters. In Lombard, we've got the Illinois Prairie Path and the Great Western Trail. They're going down those trails that are made of gravel, and they're doing 40 miles an hour and kicking up dust for trail users. That's, if you're running and something drives past you at 40 miles an hour, even that has kind of been a concern in general. And then the street takeovers is just kind of an aggravating it kind of amps it up even further. So, from our community members, just a general concern about it seems like their perception, and actually it's our perception at this point too, that it's not if, it's more like when someone's going to get seriously injured. And in Lombard, we've had a couple accidents, one that we thought was potentially fatal, but ultimately was not, thankfully. And people say it's just a matter of time, and it does seem like that's where we're at right now. So we're doing what we can with education. Education is always our first go-to, because of course you can't catch everybody, right? So yeah, if you wrote everybody a ticket, would it deter them from doing it again? Probably. But education is always our first approach here when it comes to stuff like this, because you're going to reach more people with education than you are with tickets. You can't catch everybody, but you can try to educate everybody.